Welcome to the Fantasy Flow. It is a free agent fiesta for most teams, not the Seahawks, but most teams. It is pretty crazy. We're recording on Wednesday, March 12th. You're going to hear the phrase a lot as of this recording because news is just flying fast and furious, has been for the last 3 days. There's lots of players still unsigned, but we're going to kind of just take a snapshot of where things are at right now as of this recording. And we're going to talk fantasy. We're going to talk NFL. Before we get there, how are you doing? What's going on?
I'm going good. The doggo just got some knee surgery, so we're adjusting to that. But
Yeah.
life is pretty good. Actually, as we started this recording, I'm already starting it off well. The light was still out. It's still sunny. It just turned dark. Like it just got dark now. So loving that. Not ready for spring at all, but I'm ready for it.
Right on. Yeah. We just
I'm
compiled like a list of things that we need to do around the house. And my wife and I just looked at each other and we're like, we should hire all of this out. Like this isn't gonna be fun.
the pantry, the lawn, the garage, etc. Right?
The lawn's a huge one because it hasn't been touched basically for months. So yeah, no, it's good though. Yeah, I love the sun being out. I love the good weather. You know, in Washington State, we only get a few months of it, so I think a lot of us are really excited to kind of turn the page there. Um, Boy, you know who turned the page? John Schneider and Mike McDonald. Andy, the news broke over the last week that the Seahawks have traded Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders for a late third round pick. And they traded DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a mid second round pick. And oh, by the way, just released Tyler Lockett. Tell me your initial reaction and where you're at now with it, now that it's been a few days. You know, a lot of Seahawks fans are coping or they are doing the opposite and they're spiraling.
Yeah, losing DK I think is the biggest hit. Obviously, losing Geno is not really what I wanted to see going into this offseason, but for a third round, I can't be too upset. And then for a second round, and we don't have to pay DK that massive contract. It's not great. I'm really split on it. Obviously, I would rather have him in the building, but paying that much for a wide receiver that is kind of our wide receiver 1B, like I don't know. We weren't willing to pay that type of money. The Seahawks, I should say, were not willing to pay that type of money.
Right. Yeah.
And you and me have talked about this at length. We don't really understand why, but this is a new coach. It's not a new GM, but it's a new coach. This is the Seahawks turning a new leaf. Last year was like kind of like just hurry up and go. Just we got our coach and now let's just do our best. Made moves during the beginning of the season. Now this is Mike McDonald's first real offseason, and we're seeing the new page, the new leaf of the Seahawks right in front of our eyes.
Boy, are we. Yeah. I got a lot of thoughts about this. So we had a whole episode going back almost a month. I don't know, was it 3 weeks, 4 weeks? That the Seahawks were just at a major inflection point. I mean, we knew that a lot of big decisions had to be made with DK, Geno, and Tyler Lockett all going into the final year of their deals, asking for new deals. When the news broke that they were trading Geno and trading away DK, and then they let Tyler Lockett go, to me, I thought this was the Seahawks switching from like to be in the mix every year is good enough to like a rebuild, like tear it down and try and build a Super Bowl contender. That's what I kind of thought was happening. I thought, okay, maybe they're going to pass it off to the existing backup, just like they did when they went from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith. That seemed like kind of a natural, like an organic tank. But then Geno was good, and we went to the playoffs. So that just radically changed, I think, John Schneider's whole plan. And so I thought, okay, now he's traded away Geno. We're going to hand it off to Sam Howell, and we're going to do basically the same
Mm,
thing. We're going to do another organic tank, and maybe Sam Howell's good, but probably not. And we're going to just save a bunch of money, and we're going to rebuild. And then they go out and they sign Sam Darnold to a 3-year, $100 million deal, basically 33 million a year with 55 million guaranteed. That is feels like a 2-year deal. Like if he sucks, the Seahawks could get out after 2 years. Um, I think that's the only thing I don't hate about this whole offseason for the Seahawks is that that contract isn't that bad. I will give John Schneider that. Um, Sam Darnold looked really good last year, and this contract is pretty team friendly. That's about the only good thing I have to say about this whole offseason. Andy, you were
oh
doing a
boy.
happy dance over there. Tell me how you feel about getting Sam Darnold.
Okay, one, that can't be the best thing that you feel about all this because we also re-signed Ernest Jones. I mean, that was a must, and that makes me jump up and down getting Ernest Jones back. But I argue with you on this. Is this not the best case scenario? We get a younger quarterback for a cheaper price. And like you said, and it was a team friendly deal to where if he does suck, if it doesn't work out, we can get out of it really quickly. It's not the Kirk Cousins type of free agent deal. So, what isn't this the best case scenario? Like, what other scenario could be better than this, in my opinion?
We could have just kept Geno and DK. No, so listen. This kind of takes me to my first real rant. And like I said, I got a lot of thoughts, so I'm just gonna go. But so we signed Sam Darnold for 33 million. Geno has yet to sign an extension with the Raiders as of this recording. But a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Sam Darnold, he's younger and he's $10 million cheaper." So it's like, okay, let's roll with that. $10 million cheaper. Let's say Geno, sign. He was asking for like 43 million a year. Well, so many Seahawks fans are saying that that's too much for Geno Smith. And, you can argue about how good Geno Smith is. I think we'd all agree he's better than Sam Darnold. Um, but I guess my point is, if you don't know what percentage of the salary cap $43 million represents in 2025, then you shouldn't get to say that it's too much money for Geno Smith. And same goes with DK Metcalf and $30 million. You're just like, oh, they were asking too much. And it's like, how do you know? And it's like, well, 43 just sounds like too much to me. Or 30 million just sounds like too much to me. And it's like, based on what? The salary cap goes up a lot every single year. And most people don't know what percentage of the salary cap that is. They don't know relative to the rest of the league. How much is the rest of the league paying their starting quarterback? For example, so if the Seahawks had agreed to pay Geno Smith $43 million a year, that would have made him the 15th highest paid QB in 2025. 15th. That's about where Geno is in the league. I would say he's 10 to 15. So that's not crazy to me that Geno's asking for that much money, and it won't be crazy to me when he gets it from the Raiders. Matthew Stafford just got 40 million a year, and he's 37 years old. As you want to talk about Geno's too old, it's not really. Geno's 2.5 years younger than that. It's just frustrating to me. I'm frustrated with John Schneider that it had to go down this way. That he's trying to play Moneyball at the two most important positions. If you lump the entire offensive line together, I would say it's quarterback and offensive line. He's trying to Moneyball those positions. Meanwhile, like you said, he's given the defense everything that Mike McDonald wants, right? Mike McDonald, you get to re-sign Jerron Reed, you get to re-sign Ernest Jones, you get to go out today. They just signed DeMarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys. So the defense looks great, but I don't know why we're playing Moneyball with these super important positions. It feels unnecessary. And the last thing I want to say about that is the Seahawks' top 3 cap hits in 2025, as of this recording, besides Sam Darnold, Uchenna Nwosu is an outside linebacker who was hurt all last year, 21 million. Defensive lineman Leonard Williams at 15 million, great player. And tight end Noah Fant at 13.5 million. Those are the three biggest cap hits after we made all the moves that we made. And so it's like, if Noah Fant is the reason why we had to let go of DK Metcalf, like, how is that not a mistake? Like, I don't know.
I agree. I'll take over. I agree. I would much rather have DK and that contract than a second round pick. Now, if you're talking about Pittsburgh's first round pick, that could be a toss up. But the more you talk about this and how John Snyder is deciding to play with the offense and build the offense, he's gotten burned by going out and trading for or signing big offensive names. Big example is the whole Max Unger for Jimmy Graham, right? Like, he got, at the time it was okay, but that did not age well at all. So how he's deciding to, and look at our draft history with our wide receivers. We drafted Tyler Lockett, turned out to be a great star. Drafted DK Metcalf, turned out to be a great star. Drafted JSN, turning out to be a great star. Like, we're probably going to use those second and third round picks that we got for Geno and got for DK as wide receivers somewhere. We have 5 picks in the first 100 players. Like, that's...
Oh my God. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard Seahawks fans say that, 5 picks in the first 100 picks. Well, you have 1 in the top 49.
Oh, that's pretty rough. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying,
like
though. I hear what you're saying. Like, I think John Schneider, he perpetually overestimates himself. But I think you are right to point out that he has a great track record at the wide receiver position. And another argument that I've heard that I think, I don't love it, but it makes a little bit of sense. If this new offensive scheme, it's just reliant on running the ball a ton, and you're basically just de-emphasizing the passing game altogether, that makes a little bit more sense. It would make sense, I should say, if you coupled it with improving the offensive line. But I think that's kind of the elephant in the room here, that, like, they haven't. And it's been we're multiple days into free agency. A lot of the big offensive line names have already found other landing spots. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Can the draft save the Seahawks there? They have a lot of picks, but then you're asking a lot of rookie offensive linemen.
Yeah, we didn't go get a center, which pissed me off. We got this guy, Josh Jones. I would have loved to go get, like, Laken Tomlinson, traded for somebody, but no, like, that part frustrates me the most, because you're right. We don't have the best track record of drafting offensive linemen. And now we're asking our already young, inexperienced offensive linemen to teach up and get the new rookies that hopefully we draft. We haven't even seen the draft yet. So, that's the biggest thing in all of this. Trading Geno, trading DK, that doesn't address the offensive line, right? So even if we keep them, we still have a bad offensive line. We might have one of the 5 worst offensive lines, even if we keep those guys. So what's, like, there could be an argument made there, is what's the point of keeping these guys and keep on giving them contracts if we're not addressing the most, like you said, arguably the second most important position group as the offensive line.
Yeah.
Get some draft capital for them. There's no Geno's last year of his contract, DK's last year of his contract. Like, we basically flop DK for the exact pick that we picked him up for in the first place a handful of years ago. I see you rolling your eyes. I see you, like, kind of slightly nodding your head, but, like, this is what we have to try to dissect the science behind this, and it's painful because we are emotionally attached to this team.
Yeah. I mean that's why I'm upset about what a lot of John Schneider's doing, because I love the Seahawks, right? and he's done great in the past. So I just very confusing to me the route that he's going. I'm just so pessimistic about this offense. You got Nepo baby Clint Kubiak coming in. Um, Wide receivers JSN, and then behind him is Jake Bobo. We signed Marquez Valdez Scantling. Um, I I kind of don't hate that actually. If he's our wide receiver too, I hate that. But he's a nice role player as a deep threat. Um, but that's our wide receiver room at the moment. JSN, Jake Bobo, and MVS. Like that's wild. Bottom five offensive line, and then Sam Darnold, who's heavily dependent on a good offensive line. I just don't know how this works. Like we were all so excited about how much cap space they have, and then they signed Sam Darnold, and that's like half of our cap space. And we haven't seen them do a whole lot. I mean, they signed 32-year-old Demarcus Lawrence. Um, that's like the biggest thing that they've done in free agency so far. So
Sure,
I
sure.
don't know,
Well,
man. I don't know.
I mean, when Mike McDonald was in Baltimore, they had a decent O line. I don't think Baltimore was ever regarded as like a top offensive line, but they had a dynamic quarterback, right? And then they had the stellar defense, like. And then when he was at Michigan, they had a stellar defense, a pretty good offensive line for JJ McCarthy, and he wasn't on that team when they got to the championship, but they made runs when he was on Michigan. So he's following that blueprint, having a stellar defense and a decent offense. And that's not fun as a fan. We want to see the high scoring. We loved Ryan Grubb because of the passing, because of the scoring, because Geno was just slinging it all over the yard.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an adjustment this year for sure. For sure.
That's a really good point about the parallels between like Michigan and Baltimore. It does feel like the Seahawks, Lamar Jackson excluded, are kind of morphing into that. And this whole pessimism that I'm talking about, it's exclusive to the offense. Like I'm really pumped about this defense, and we re-signed all the players I wanted them to re-sign. And yeah, just another year in the system, another off season. It's got me pretty giddy, and it's only going to get better after the draft, right? So
Right.
that is very exciting. I don't know. I think that's a lot of Seahawks talk. If you're not a Seahawks fan, thanks for bearing with us. But I mean, I think they're objectively one of the most interesting teams this offseason. I mean, they basically just changed everything on that side of the ball.
Yeah. For sure. It's not very often that the big newscasters are talking about the Seahawks unless there's drama, unless there's something wrong going on. So the fact that, we're making moves and people are talking about us and adding the Seattle Seahawks to their headlines or to the title of their videos for their clips, whatever it may be, is somewhat exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And man, like the NFL draft's already one of my favorite. It's like one of my favorite holidays. And now the Seahawks. I guess I'll say it. They have, what is it? 5 picks in the top 100. So that is going to be fun to track. And we'll be there. The Fantasy Flow is going to be tracking the draft quite a bit.
Yeah.
Very excited for that. Might even go live. We'll see. All right. Well, that is, like I said, that's a lot of Seahawks talk. Let's talk fantasy football, huh? On the Fantasy Flow. Let's talk about the biggest fantasy winners so far in NFL free agency. Andy, I'm going to flip it over to you. Which players really upped their stock? You can talk about for 2025 or for Dynasty. Just hit me with some players who are just major winners so far.
Yeah, the first two that came to mind were Devontae Adams and Jaden Daniels. Devontae Adams, he gets Matthew Stafford. He becomes the 1B, maybe the 2 on a high power offense. He gets an amazing head coach. He plays on the West Coast. I mean, just like he's in LA. I mean, this is just classic, like big name player goes to a big name city that is probably like the Rams probably are they have the division to, or how do you say that? It's their division to lose. I mean,
Looks like it.
So if they can get back to even just as close as they were last year or better, I mean, he's got to be happy as a human, and I think as a fantasy player, I think that is just the perfect spot for Devontae Adams. I hate that as a Seahawks fan, but as a fantasy player and owner, I love that for Devontae Adams. And then Jaden Daniels, I mean, I don't need to speak too much, but they go and trade for a great offensive lineman. They go get Deebo Samuel. They let go of some minor pieces. They re-signed Zach Ertz. Um, they keep Austin Eckler. I mean, they just kept the nucleus for him and improved it all at the same time. I think that's going to be huge for him.
That's really funny because I wrote down for some of our later segments. I talked a lot about the Commanders. I got that written down here. I just didn't connect all the lines back to Jaden Daniels, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, he's got a new left tackle. They're keeping all the good players and they're adding Deebo Samuel. Like that's his arrow's got to go up, right? You know, that's very exciting for a young player who was already so good last year. You know, maybe he stays in the pocket a little more and completes some more passes and runs a little less. I think that's the only downside. And if that's the downside, then that's a pretty safe floor. So, yeah, very exciting for him. I wrote down Devontae Adams as well, basically replacing Cooper Kupp in the Rams offense. And, Cooper Kupp, 100 targets last year. That's 100 vacated targets. They also lost Demarcus Robinson, who was kind of their wide receiver 3. So, yeah, there's a lot of room for Devontae Adams to continue to produce at his age. You know, he had a great year last year. A lot of people don't really realize that, but he kept producing for fantasy. And, yeah, he's totally set up for success there. I got 2 other names that are big fantasy winners as of this recording. Najee Harris signed with the LA Chargers. He's pretty much the only running back on that depth chart. I think like he was a rookie last year. Kamani Vidal is like the RB2. So they could still add someone. They could add someone in the draft. The draft is loaded with running backs, so it's a little dangerous to really anoint running backs right now as being like a workhorse. And they could bring back J.K. Dobbins too, who's still out there as of this recording. But right now, I mean, Najee Harris, 1,000 yards every year of his career, and he looks like the guy in the Chargers. So I like him. And another name, Justin Fields. Not really complicated. Like, he wasn't a starter. Now he is. So that's pretty exciting for like Dynasty. You know, if you had Justin Fields, this is the perfect spot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is when that finally happened. I just immediately thought back to our podcast and our conversation about like he didn't really have a fitting spot, and that the Jets were kind of just a random opening. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And then it actually happened. Like it was just so cool how that came full circle.
Yeah, we both predicted it in our previous episode. So that's nice. How about some losers, Andy? Fantasy losers.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going CJ Stroud here. They traded for Christian Kirk. Cool. They lost their left tackle, and then they signed Lincoln Tomlinson. But you know, Tank Dell is out for the whole year. Stephon Diggs is still a mystery. He's still out there right now. I just, you know, they have an older running back. I don't really see how this team got better on the offensive side of things. On the defense, I think they're okay. I think they got better or about the same. Nothing like crazy in my mind, but I don't know. Just they lost Shaq Mason. They traded away Kenyon Green. They traded away Laramie Tunzel. Like if I remember correctly, he was the second most sacked quarterback last year. And then they get rid of the veterans O lineman that they had, and they only get one in replace. So
that is tough. That's really tough. Yeah, man, Stroud was he flew too close to the sun. Like his value in fantasy football was so high. But man, Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle that they traded away, he led the league in penalties. So that is a pretty easy way to get yourself ran out of town. when you keep
True.
setting your offense back like that. He's a good blocker still. That's why he had a market. But man, I kind of get it. Yeah, you just got to wonder what's next. Yeah, I think there's cause for concern there for sure. A fantasy loser that I had, we talked about the Commanders, how they brought everyone back. Kind of a nice dynasty stash we thought was their tight end that they took at the beginning of the second round, Ben Sinnott. They brought back Zach Ertz, so it seems like his emergence just got delayed like a whole year, and could be even more. Like we don't know. Zach Ertz's deal is 1 year, so yeah, that's a bummer for anyone who was waiting on Ben Sinnott. And then the other name that I had as a fantasy loser, um, right now it's got to be DK Metcalf. Like
Yeah.
he got the
I
bag, but who's the Steelers QB?
I thought about putting him on there, but just because there was so much mystery, and honestly, like a big storyline behind this that I heard over this past week is, does George Pickens like request to get out like after this year or even before this year starts? He obviously sees that he's not the star picture that they want him to be, or else he would get that type of contract. So they went, like, how often do the Steelers go and trade and sign for a star wide receiver like that? They never do that. They
Right.
always draft. They always homebrew, homegrown, draft within, learn and grow within. Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, yes, the mystery of the quarterback over there is looming, and by the time this gets out, we might know. But yes, for sure, he goes from a pass heavy Ryan Grubb, Geno Smith quarterback, and then to Artie Smith, run the football, don't even know who your quarterback is.
Right, right. No, that's a good point about how the Steelers, they kind of try to, just their philosophy is that they moneyball the wide receiver position. So this is totally counter to their tendencies. Like you said, give up a second round pick and give him 30 million a year. That's huge. Man, George Pickens, I think he'd be an idiot to request to go out of town because DK Metcalf, he opens up a lot for the other wide receivers on the field. He has that like gravity when he's running routes. Like safeties are attracted to him because they're scared of getting burnt. I think it's going to open up a lot for George Pickens. That being said, we don't know who their quarterback is. Another wrinkle could be reunited with Russell Wilson.
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
according to the rumors, right now that doesn't seem super likely, but that I wouldn't hate that because they have that chemistry, right? They have that history.
No, I think Pittsburgh fans wouldn't mind if Russ comes back, but I think that's just becoming less and less likely at this point. I don't know. It's just there's still a couple big dominoes that still need to fall, and I thought the Sam Darnold and Justin Fields side of things, I thought that would kind of create more of a butterfly effect, and it's really nothing else has really happened except for Daniel Jones going to the Colts. I mean, that doesn't really matter in my mind. So yeah, I'm curious to see Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. Like, I am just, as a Kirk Cousins dynasty owner, I am just chomping at the bit to see what happens, if he stays or if he goes.
Teams who improved the most, teams who regressed the most. Spoiler alert: I got the Seahawks in the latter category.
Oh,
Andy,
ooh.
tell me what other NFL team out there you just really loved the moves that they made.
Okay. Denver was the first one that came to mind. They didn't do much. I'm just pulling their thing up right now. They signed Hufunga, they signed Dre Greenlaw, they signed Evan Ingram, and then they signed this wide receiver named Trent Sherfield. They lost DJ Jones, Jarrett Stidham, and they re-signed DJ Jones, they re-signed Jarrett Stidham, and they re-signed Justin Stannard. So they didn't do a whole lot, but what they did do was just make their defense even more dominant, even better, and every piece was just like, yes, big thumbs up. Yes, big thumbs up. Oh my gosh, they already have these three guys, and now they go and get these other three guys. Like, oh my gosh, that defense is going to be so much fun to watch. So they were the first team that screamed at me to say definitely biggest, most improved in my mind.
Broncos fans got to be so stoked. And the Chiefs are kind of losers a little bit. I don't feel strongly
Yeah.
enough to really put them in that category, but like just Broncos are just the stock is climbing, and yeah, I love the Evan Ingram addition. I said in our group chat, I was like, man, kind of reminds me of Jimmy Graham. Like he's known for being a pass catcher and he's known for being terrible at blocking. And I'm like, Sean Payton has no problem with those guys. He just treats them like a wide
Right.
receiver. So, yeah,
Yeah.
he knows exactly how to use a guy like that, and I like that for Bo Nix. I mean, Evan Ingram soaked up targets in Jacksonville, so for fantasy, it might be a little bit of a lateral move for him, but we'll see. Yeah, I love it for the Broncos offense as a whole. I think it's going to keep moving. And then they lost Javonte Williams. That's a name that we didn't really talk about, but yeah, no, I think they'll address it in the draft. Maybe earlier than later. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But I mean, those were the tight end on the offensive side. They were missing a tight end and they were missing a star running back. They let go of their running back and they went and got a solid tight end. So, like you said, they can easily fill that running back spot in the draft. And this is one of the deepest running back drafts we've seen in a little while too. So there's lots of options out there for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the teams that I wrote down as being a winner. I'm not going to keep dwelling on this, but the Raiders, they traded a late third round pick for a franchise quarterback, borderline franchise quarterback. I think he's going to get a new deal, and that's your quarterback. He's very stable. He's league average at worst, and that's such an upgrade compared to what they have been dealing with. So that's got to feel great if you're a Raiders fan, and now you have the 6th overall pick to use on whatever you want. Like I think you and I and a lot of other people were mocking a quarterback to them at pick 6. Now they're totally freed up to just take best player available, and that's got to be really exciting if you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah, they extend Max Crosby. They signed Jeremy Chin, which I think is an underrated signing.
I totally missed that. Well, that's cool.
They had to move some things. The one thing I didn't like about the Raiders is they had to lose. They lost Spillane, basically the captain of the defense. But he was definitely part of the old regime. So with Pete Carroll, new GM, new ownership, there's going to be a lot of changes for the Raiders. But that's an interesting take. I didn't consider them a big winner when I was thinking about this. The other biggest winner I thought was the Bears. Ben Johnson hasn't been there long, but he is already doing a way better job than probably like the last 4 coaches of the Bears have ever done. So, yeah, like I'm excited for the Bears. They go and trade for 2 offensive linemen. They get
signed
rid
more
of
in free agency. Like they totally retooled the entire line. Just absolutely nuts. Like I didn't even know you could do that, and they're out here doing it. It's just funny though, because the Bears, like, maybe it's just in my mind, but I still don't know if it's going to work, and that's because the Bears, they've been off-season winners in previous years, and then they disappoint in the regular season. But yeah, there is reason for optimism with these new offensive linemen and with the new coach, obviously Ben Johnson. Andy, do you have any other teams that you felt like are losers so far in this free agency period? Teams that kind of aren't making enough moves or made moves that you think are terrible?
Yeah, New Orleans stands out to me a lot because when we were going over teams that had the most cap versus the least, I think they were the worst team. I think they were the team that had the most money over the cap going into this. So it's expected that they were probably not going to be able to do a whole lot, but the stuff that they did do, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They signed Justin Reed, which I thought was great, safety, 3 years. But then they re-signed Chase Young. For a big, hefty 3 years, crazy. $51 million. He hasn't been good since like his first 2 years. Like, then they give Juwan Johnson almost $31 million. Now I like Juwan Johnson, but do I like him for that much? Not really. And then
Yeah.
Dante Pettis, like it just what they did do just seemed like way over. They were already in a hole, and then they're like, "Wait, we need more shovels to dig us a bigger hole."
Yeah, they brought back all the old guys. They brought back Tyrann Mathieu, who I love, but like not anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a
Yeah,
big fan of
yeah,
it. Same with who's that? Cameron Jordan on the edge. They brought him back for another year, and it's like, man, these guys. The Saints aren't doing anything this year. It's like maybe just retire. Like it doesn't make sense for
yeah.
anyone. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Do you have another one? Another team?
Yeah, I'm going San Francisco 49ers. They lost everybody. They
Let's
lose
talk about
Debo.
it.
They they lose Kyle Juszczyk. They lose Hargrave. They had to release Leonard Ford. They just gave this guy a big contract to come over from the Bills and play the other edge of Nick Bosa, and then they let him go after 1 year. Some other ones like yeah, like I said, they lose Hargrave, they lose Malik Collins, they lose
Their safety, Hufanga.
Tyfunga. Yep,
Yeah.
Tufunga, thank you. Like, and then the guys that they did bring over. I like the Demarcus Robinson signing, but that's nothing really in my mind. And that's about it. Like I'm looking at their sheet here. It's a bunch of 1 year deals, and they just lost so many pieces in my mind. And
Yeah.
like, what is going to happen to that defense now? They have Robert Saleh to coach him up, but is that enough? I don't know.
No, no, it feels like the closing of a Super Bowl window, honestly, when you look at all of the Pro Bowl talent that just left their roster. Um, Kyle Juszczyk, he's a very important to what they do. So they're going to try and replace him, maybe through the draft, but like, man, guys like that don't come along very often. I know he's getting up there in age, but if the Seahawks are going to run as much as they're talking about running, if they're going to emphasize that, that's your what am I trying to say? That's the Seahawks' new identity. Go get
Yeah.
Kyle Juszczyk. Bring it back.
Ooh. Ooh, that'd be cool. I would love that. I would love that.
Bring back the
Um,
fullback, like Mike Robb. Come on.
yeah. Yeah, no, that would be. I would love to see that and see Clint Kubiak use him in cool ways, especially because he has that experience when he was there in San Francisco. And then the last team I throw out there is just the Browns. The Browns are going to do the Browns things. They re-sign Myles Garrett to like the biggest contract in history, and I don't blame them for doing that. But besides that, they trade DTR for Kenny Pickett. Like they traded a draft pick and DTR for Kenny Pickett. Let me say that again. They traded a guy that they believed in. They drafted. They traded that guy away and a draft pick to go get Kenny Pickett. Like that's
Okay, I have thoughts.
bonkers to me.
Yeah. So, first of all, we didn't do a news segment because this entire show is basically news. But we totally buried the lead. We're 40 minutes in, and we didn't talk about Myles Garrett signing the biggest contract for a non-quarterback ever, like by a lot. Like this was absolutely nuts. It really seemed like he wanted out of town, and geez, I mean, when you're offered 40 million a year for what, 4 years or something like that? Yeah, 4 years. That's insane. Like it's like a bad move. Like the Browns are not competitive, so why are you allocating so much to pass rush? I don't know. He's he's nearing 30, and he just totally doesn't fit the timeline of your team. This made no sense from the Browns, but I love it for Myles Garrett. Good for you, dude.
Oh
Stay in
yeah.
the
I mean,
AFC. That's fine, but I kind of sneaky like the Kenny Pickett move, and I'll tell you why. So I think it makes no sense if they go out and sign one of these other quarterbacks. If they sign Aaron Rodgers or
hmm,
Kirk Cousins or whoever, then it doesn't make sense. But if you make Kenny Pickett your starter, I kind of like it because he's probably going to lose you a lot of games, get you like a nice early first round pick, um, or he doesn't. In which case, he's a very young, cheap quarterback who, if he shows signs of life, you could roll with into the future. If he actually develops a connection with Jerry Jeudy, he won a sneaky amount of games in Pittsburgh. That was mostly because of the defense, but like, I don't know. I think he could do worse. I don't have a whole lot else for this episode, but I'm sure a bunch of news is going to break over the next few days. Maybe we'll record again sooner than later, because we got to stay on top of this, and then we got the draft right around the corner. So, Andy, did you have any parting thoughts for us?
No, this was fun. I liked the rapid fire. I like just kind of talking about the things that we want to talk about instead of going over every single news. It's just too much to talk about. So I like focusing in on what we did. So
yeah, hopefully you guys did too. Thanks for sticking with us all the way to the end of the episode.
See ya.
Go Hawks. Thanks a ton for making it to the end of the episode. You're a real one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's a free, easy way to support the show, and it really helps us out. And leave us your comments down below if you're on YouTube, or send in your questions at thefantasyflowpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.